Before we get to our content for today, I want to thank our sponsors. First of all, Iowa Floor Covering and their Tough Core Click Together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring. Right now, the guys over at Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant are selling this at just $269 per foot with self-installation. Great value, and you'll get great service from the guys at Iowa Floor Covering. Visit iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. And also, Ascent Nutrition. I've talked about their coffee at length, but man, if you need something to get you through a busy week, start your day off with some of this Ascent coffee. It's pure, it's mold and mycotoxin free, so it's not damaging to your health. And also, when you purchase a bag of this stuff or any of the products from Ascent Nutrition, you're supporting the business of a former Hawkeye, and you're supporting this channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Visit goascentnutrition.com and use the code Hawkeyes to receive 15% off your total order. With that being said, let's dive into the Hawkeyes. Was this a shock to you? Was it a surprise to you? What were your initial takeaways from this announcement?
Well, it certainly wasn't a shock, Corey. I would call it a mild surprise, I guess. And the reason I say that, it was obvious based on the way things have gone lately that any AD in that situation would be subjected to some criticism for things that have happened. I'm not even saying it all lies at his feet. I'm not saying that at all. But when things go wrong, of course, people want to complain. And when I say go wrong, we're obviously not talking about all the good things that have happened. There have been a lot of good things that are happening. I was excited. I'm excited right now about Iowa baseball, and we can discuss that later. But the negatives that come out, of course, we've had some judgments in the courts go against us, or some settlements that we've had to pay, and it's amounted to a lot of money. And again, I don't think he deserves all the blame for that. Who knows where the blame really lies? But those are unfortunate things that have happened at Iowa in recent years, and the tendency, of course, is to blame those that are in the highest positions. And in that regard, Gary's going to get more than his fair share of blame.
Let me just give you my 2 cents of this, Don, and you and I talked a little bit prior. I don't mince words. I want to be respectful with my criticism, and also recognizing the accomplishments of a guy who has been here 17 years. And it's my criticisms toward Gary Barta have never been anything personal, very similar to how my criticisms regarding Brian Ferentz have never been personal. And frankly, my criticisms of Kirk Ferentz and Lisa Bluter and Fran McCaffrey are never personal. I'm not a hater of any one of those individuals. I try to call it like I see it. But the fact of the matter is, in my honest opinion, Don, my minuscule ability to evaluate an AD is that Gary Barta has cost the university a lot of money. And people may not agree with that. I understand that a number of these different settlements and payouts they had various circumstances, individualized circumstances. I understand that. But when you see a pattern of behavior and you see a pattern of cost to the university, I think you look at the top. You look to the top. And right. We've talked about the same principle applies to a position group in football. Don, you coached a number of position groups in your time. If you consistently have bad eggs and players who are not developing, you can blame the players, but I blame the coach because it's a common denominator with all these generations.
And when you said that, you sounded exactly like John Hayden Fry, because Coach Fry always said, "I don't blame the players. I blame you, the coaches."
And so we go from the top down, and we've had the field hockey situation. And this is not, by the way, this is not going to be an hour and a half of ripping Gary Barta, but I just want to acknowledge where I stand on it. We've had the field hockey gender lawsuit that cost Iowa millions. You had the Chris Doyle, the racial situation that cost Iowa. It cost Iowa not only in paying Chris Doyle, but now it's cost Iowa in paying out this lawsuit, whether you think it was a money grab or not. You have, I think, some blunders in handling some situations with Gary Dolphin. You have the Rabdo Gate situation with Chris Doyle and Iowa football. You have, you just go down the list, Don. You have, what am I missing here? I know I'm missing a couple, but that's a long, even Mark Rogers. We talked with Mark here about an hour ago. Mark said the same thing. He's not in touch with Iowa, maybe like you and I are, Don, but even Mark admitted that seems like a lot for a condensed period of time. You're always going to have issues, but that just seems like a lot of problems. And let's not forget the Title IX issues. The Title IX issues with swimming, elimination of a couple programs, how Gary reportedly handled that, how he didn't communicate. You have the lack of communication, reportedly the lack of communication with the Swarm Collective. And I've had Brad Heinrichs on this very show. We had him on a week or two ago. He's never come on here and ripped Gary. I think he's a professional, and he is a pro's pro at what he does. But I'm just saying that's where I stand on this situation. And I think today, regardless of what happens, today is a good day for Iowa athletics. Anything I'm missing, Don? Am I coming down too hard on Gary?
I don't think so, Corey. Here's a question I have for you. Do we even know what the BLM fiasco is going to cost us yet? We don't know, do we, at this point?
Well, it's going to cost them, what, $4 million?
Is that what it is? I wasn't sure there was a definitive amount.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's not forget, what, a month, 2 months ago, we had the state of Iowa auditor demanding for Gary Barta to be relieved of his duties and demanding that Iowa not pay half of that $4 million settlement. Iowa since basically volunteered to say, we're going to pay it. I also want to acknowledge, if I'm going to claim to be fair and unbiased, I want to acknowledge the accomplishments that Gary has pinned. And one of those is the fact that he's had a string of good hires, Don. I mean, you mentioned the baseball program. How about Rick Heller? I mean, it's a tough place to win, any place in the Big Ten, frankly. Big Ten baseball is not an easy thing to master. You've got Joey Woody, who's won multiple Big Ten titles with track and field. You've got Tom Brands, who's kept that wrestling program rolling in one of the top two programs in the country. Kirk Ferentz has been retained, and you can be critical of Kirk all you want. The numbers speak for themselves. He's a Hall of Fame coach, and let's not forget that he had several opportunities to go other places. Whether Gary was responsible for retaining him or not, you've got to give Gary credit. Because if we're going to blame him in any sort for some of the issues off the field and legal issues, you've got to give him some credit for being able to retain Kirk. And, of course, the hiring of Fran McCaffrey. Fran has been able to bring the program back to basically what it was under Dr. Tom Davis. The numbers would indicate that. And Lisa Bluter, Jan Jensen, he's been able to retain those two phenomenal coaches. So Gary has done good things. I know everybody wants to tout fundraising. I'm going to tout some of the hires he's made. And they haven't all been good. The Todd Licklider experiment did not work out, Don. But the bottom line is, I think you got to look at this from both perspectives. I do think collectively this is a good day for Iowa. You just feel like 17 years in with some of the recent issues. And I do think the NIL storyline and the collective, the relationship between the athletic department and the Swarm Collective, all right, and the powers that be, they just need to be better. And I don't see any way, and maybe I'm completely naive to the situation, I don't see any way that this announcement today does not help that relationship grow. I just don't. Because I don't know that, and I'm saying this, I'm not speaking for anybody else, certainly not Brad Heinrichs or anybody else with the Swarm, but based on my observations and what's been out there doesn't really seem to be much of a relationship between Iowa and the Swarm. And I'm talking Kirk Ferentz or Fran or those guys. I'm talking about from the head of the athletic department. That has been Gary Barta.